A long, messy story of cheating, heartbreak, and maybe reconciliation. Venting. I don't even know where to begin with this, but I'm emotionally drained, and I feel like I need to let it out before I explode. Maybe if I put it out there, I can finally make sense of the mess that is my relationship. So yeah, here's my story. It's long, it's complicated, and honestly, it feels like something out of a bad soap opera. If you're here for drama, grab some popcorn. It all started back in January of this year. That's when I confronted my boyfriend, 21 Meme, about something that had been eating me alive for months. You know that gut feeling? The one that tells you something isn't right, even though you don't have all the facts? Yeah, I had that. For 6 long months, I'd been questioning whether or not he had cheated on me. It was like this dark cloud hanging over me every single day. I had tried everything to shake it off, even reached out to Reddit for advice. And what did I get? People telling me I was insecure and that I needed to chill. Everyone made me feel like I was the problem, like I was crazy for doubting him. But deep down, I knew something was off. I should have trusted my gut from the start because, as it turns out, I wasn't paranoid. I was right all along. But let's rewind a bit, because the story didn't just start there. No, this mess started way before January. It started back in the middle of 2020, when the world was in lockdown and I had just gotten out of a messy breakup. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone to talk to, maybe flirt a little. That's when he entered the picture. We'll call him Jay. Jay slid into my DMs one random night, and what started as friendly chats quickly spiraled into something more. At first, it was just harmless flirting. I thought it was fun, maybe a good distraction from all the chaos going on in the world. But soon enough, the flirting turned into sexting. Every weekend, we'd send each other nudes, have virtual sex over text, the whole deal. And the crazy part, we hadn't even done video calls yet. It was all through text, but the connection, it felt real. Like, deep down, I thought I was falling for him. By the end of 2020, our relationship, if you could even call it that at the time, had gotten way more serious. We started doing video calls, and it wasn't just casual chats anymore. It was hours of deep, intimate conversations. We talked about our dreams, our fears, everything. And of course, there was the virtual sex. Let's just say things got steamy, like really steamy. The chemistry was insane. We didn't do the usual couple stuff like watch Netflix together or play games, but what we had felt intense. It was all-consuming, and before I knew it, I was head over heels for a guy I'd never even met in person. I felt like I was living in a romantic fantasy. Then 2021 came along, and Jay dropped the 3 words I had been dying to hear: I love you. I remember the exact moment he said it. My heart was pounding, and I felt like I was floating. For someone who I'd never actually been with physically, it was wild how much he had gotten under my skin. I thought I was in control of my feelings, but the truth is, he had me wrapped around his finger from the start. The problem was, we still hadn't defined what we were. We were in this limbo where we were acting like a couple, but never actually saying we were exclusive. It was confusing, but I was too caught up in the romance to care. By May, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know where we stood. So, one night during one of our video calls, I worked up the courage to ask him, are we exclusive? Do you really love me? I was terrified he'd say no, but instead, he cried. He cried, and I cried too. It was one of those moments where everything feels like it's falling into place. He told me we were exclusive, that he loved me and only me. I believed him with my whole heart. I thought I had finally found my person, and for a while, it felt like everything was perfect. But there was always something nagging at me. There was this one girl, a name that kept popping up in the back of my mind. I'd seen her tagged in his social media posts, and even though he barely mentioned her, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She was from my country too, and there were these little things, tiny coincidences that made me feel uneasy. I tried bringing it up a few times, asking him about her, but every time, he brushed it off like it was nothing. Just a friend, he'd say. You're overthinking it. And stupid me, I believed him. I told myself I was just being insecure, that I was letting my imagination get the best of me. I wanted so badly to trust him, to believe that we had something real. Then December came. After nearly 2 years of talking online, Jay flew across the world to meet me in person. 2 weeks. We had 2 weeks of pure magic. It felt like a dream. We spent Christmas together, rang in the new year, and for the first time, everything felt real. No more screens, no more distance, just us, together, living in the same moment. He met my family, and they adored him. He charmed everyone, made them laugh, made them love him as much as I did. I felt like I was living in a fairy tale. Everything was perfect, or so I thought. But a month later, that nagging feeling came back with a vengeance. I couldn't shake it. Something was off. I started going through old messages, replaying conversations in my head, trying to find clues, trying to make sense of the unease I felt. And then it hit me. I had been ignoring my instincts for far too long. I had to confront him. So in January, I finally asked him about her. No more beating around the bush. I straight up asked him if he had been seeing her while we were together. And that's when my world shattered. He confessed. He admitted that he had been seeing her the entire time. From the moment we started talking in 2020 until July of 2021, 2 months after he told me we were exclusive, my heart dropped. I couldn't breathe. It felt like someone had punched me in the gut. All those moments we shared, all those I love yous, all those intimate conversations, it was all a lie. He had been stringing me along, making me believe I was the only one, while he was playing her the same way. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was drowning in betrayal, choking on my own heartbreak. How could I have been so blind? He tried to explain it away. Said he was immature, said he didn't realize how much he loved me until it was too late. He told me he had ended things with her in July because he finally realized I was the one he wanted. He begged me to stay, said he'd do anything to make it up to me. And in my broken state, I stayed. I stayed because I couldn't imagine my life without him. I stayed because I was so in love with the idea of him that I didn't want to face the reality of who he really was. But staying wasn't easy. The months after his confession were hell. We fought constantly. Every time we argued, I felt like I was reliving the betrayal all over again. I couldn't trust him. I couldn't look at him without picturing her, without wondering how many lies he had told me. And the worst part, he still hadn't blocked her on social media. I caught him checking her profile a few times, and when I confronted him about it, he acted like it was no big deal. He said he didn't care about her anymore, but how could I believe that? How could I believe anything he said after everything he had done? And then, in a moment of weakness, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I cheated. I went to a party, got drunk, and met someone else. It was stupid, reckless, and I hated myself for it. But I did it. I slept with him once, and for a month after, we kept texting. It wasn't serious. I didn't have feelings for this guy, but it was a way to escape the pain I was feeling. I was miserable, and I let myself make a terrible, terrible decision. In July, just before Jay came back to visit me, I cut things off with the other guy. When I saw Jay again, all the guilt came crashing down on me. I couldn't keep it a secret anymore. I had to tell him. So, after weeks of internal torment, I confessed. I told him everything, every ugly, painful detail. I didn't hold anything back. I didn't try to justify it or blame him for what I had done. I took full responsibility. And somehow he forgave me. I couldn't believe it. For 2 months, we tried to rebuild what was left of our relationship. But it wasn't easy. The cracks were still there, and no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't fix them. For those 2 months, it was like trying to put together a shattered vase with super glue. No matter how carefully we tried, the pieces just wouldn't fit the same way again. We had some good days, moments where it felt like maybe, just maybe, we could get back to what we once were. We'd laugh, we'd reminisce about the early days when everything felt so simple, and I'd catch myself thinking, maybe this is enough. Maybe we could rebuild. But then reality would come crashing back down, reminding me that underneath the surface, everything was fractured. We argued. A lot. More than I ever thought was possible. The fights weren't just small disagreements, they were explosive, emotionally draining battles that left us both exhausted. He'd bring up my betrayal, ask me for every little detail, and I couldn't blame him. I understood why he needed to know, but with every question he asked, I felt like I was stabbing myself in the heart all over again. And then there were times when I'd bring up his betrayal, the lies, the other girl, the deceit, and we'd spiral into another round of accusations and hurt. The truth is, we were both broken by what had happened, and neither of us knew how to fix it. I started going to therapy. I had to. I knew that I needed help to process all the guilt and pain, to try and make sense of why I had done what I did and why I had stayed after what he did. Therapy helped, but it didn't erase the wounds. And every time we fought, it felt like someone was ripping off the bandages, exposing those raw, bleeding wounds again. I could see the pain in his eyes, the hurt that I had caused him, and it crushed me. I hated myself for it. I hated myself for what I had done to him and for what he had done to me. It was a vicious cycle, one that we couldn't seem to escape. During those 2 months, we lived together. We tried to act like a normal couple, going out on dates, cooking dinner together, watching movies, but the tension was always there, lurking beneath the surface. I couldn't help but notice the little things, how his phone would light up with notifications, and I'd immediately wonder who it was. Was it her? Was he still thinking about her? And I knew he was doing the same to me. He'd glance at my phone, ask who I was texting, even though I had cut things off with the other guy completely. The paranoia, the distrust, it poisoned everything. And yet, despite all the pain, there were still moments where we'd look at each other and see the love that had drawn us together in the first place. In those moments, it felt like maybe we could make it. Maybe the love we had was strong enough to survive all the hurt. But the problem was, those moments were fleeting, and the weight of everything else seemed to crush us. For every good day, there were 2 or 3 bad ones. For every kiss, there was a lingering doubt. One night, after yet another fight about the past, I broke down. I told him that maybe we should just end things, that maybe the best thing for both of us would be to let go, to stop hurting each other. I was exhausted, physically, emotionally, mentally. I didn't know how much more I could take. But as soon as I said the words, the thought of actually losing him terrified me. The idea of him not being in my life anymore was unbearable, even more painful than the constant fights we were having. He didn't respond right away. He just sat there, staring at me, and I could see the same conflict in his eyes. We were both trapped, caught between wanting to hold on to what we had and knowing that maybe it was time to let go. But we didn't. We didn't break up. We decided to give it another chance, one more try. We always seemed to choose each other, no matter how much we hurt one another. It was like this invisible force pulling us back together, even when everything was falling apart. We clung to the idea of our love, to the memories of how good things used to be, hoping that we could somehow get back to that place. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. Now, in just a few days, I'm flying to Los Angeles to meet his family. This is a huge deal. We're spending the holidays together, and for the first time, I'll be stepping into his world, meeting the people who raised him, the people who probably have no idea about all the mess between us. Part of me is excited. I want to see his life, I want to meet the people who mean the most to him, and I want to believe that maybe this trip will help us heal. But the other part of me, I'm terrified. What if being in his world only makes things worse? What if meeting his family, seeing where he comes from, only deepens the cracks in our relationship? I keep thinking about how much pressure this trip holds. We've been through so much, and I feel like this is our last chance. I want to walk into this new chapter with hope, but I'm scared. Scared that we're just prolonging the inevitable, that no matter how much we try, we'll never be able to fix what's broken. Will this pain ever go away? Will we ever be able to move past the betrayals, the lies, the hurt? Or are we just fooling ourselves into thinking we can? I don't know. I don't have the answers, and that's what scares me the most. I want to believe in us, but after everything, it's hard to have faith. So in 4 days, I'll be stepping on a plane and flying to LA, hoping that maybe, just maybe, this trip will be the turning point. Maybe this time we'll finally be able to let go of the past and start fresh. But honestly, I'm not sure. I want to believe we can do it, but there's this part of me that's bracing for the worst. I've learned one thing through all of this. Love isn't enough. It's not always the fairy tale we think it is. Sometimes love is messy, painful, and complicated. Sometimes love means hurting the person you care about the most. And sometimes love means knowing when to walk away. I'm still trying to figure out which one it is for us. Thank you for sticking with me if you've made it this far. I needed to get this off my chest, and maybe, just maybe, writing it all out will help me see things more clearly. Who knows? Maybe by the time I'm back from LA, I'll have the answers I'm looking for. Or maybe I'll be back here, posting another update about how things fell apart. Either way, I guess time will tell.